Welcome to the About Sex podcast. I'm Joshua Skurtu, and with me today, as always, is my lovely wife, Angela. Hi.
Hi.
You're an ASEX certified sex therapist and a marriage and family therapist. And today we actually have a special guest, Sally Hunt, who she's a sex-positive activist and organizer who advocates for public school sex ed based in unbiased medical facts rather than medically inaccurate abstinence-only sex ed based in fear, judgment, due to conservative religious agenda. Excuse me. So Sally founded the Political Action Committee and the Facebook group Expose Thrive, designed to raise awareness and fight against Thrive, a fundamentalist Christian anti-choice group that is based in several St. Louis and St. Charles, Missouri public school districts, teaching their abstinence-only sex ed curriculum. Hi, Sally.
Hi.
Hi. Good to have you here.
Hi.
Good to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Before we get started, I want to say something. Like, we are talking about sex because this is the About Sex podcast. But today we're also talking about religion and politics. So these three, if you threw money in, like every single person listening would just hate us right away. Understand these are very sensitive topics. So if you hear an opinion you don't agree with, that's fine. But we're all trying to talk about love. We're all trying to talk about positive change. That's our point of view. That's where we're coming from.
Love and science.
Love and science.
Facts.
Facts.
Just, I am putting a plug in for facts.
Unbiased facts. True. Yes.
So let's get started. Sally, so we're talking about religion. Are you religious at all? Were you raised in a religious household?
No. I'm an atheist.
You're an atheist?
And I actually always have been. I was not raised with religion at all. I've always been a strong proponent of the separation of church and state. Everyone else is entitled to their religious beliefs, but please keep it out of laws. Please keep it out of public schools.
Right. They can have their own beliefs, but you don't want to be enforced on your kids or you.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
I believe there's some constitutional statements on that as well.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. It's somewhere in there around the fifth.
Somewhere it says, separation of church and state, although the Pledge of Allegiance does incorporate some Christian ideals.
Under God,
against that.
They added that in the 1950s, actually. It was not originally part of it. They also had a big movement of conservatism in the 50s.
Yeah.
So that's why they added that.
Yes.
So it wasn't a part of it.
All about being against atheists, basically. It's all about prejudice against atheists.
Well, they were trying to single out communists.
Yes.
And atheism in general.
Saying we're not like those godless commies type of thing.
Exactly.
So, it's wrong. My kids ask me about that all the time. They're like, why do we say this? And it says under God. I know.
Well, don't say it.
For sure.
Yeah.
They know that. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Or you say what you want. I don't care.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about Thrive. Like, what medical inaccuracies do they teach?
I'm excited about all the weird facts and Thrive. Tell me.
Or
just tell us in general what they do.
Yeah. So Thrive is a conservative fundamentalist organization, and there's no secret about that. It's right there on their tax forms. They're Christ-centered. Yeah. I mean, they don't even pretend to not be. They are.
They are a religious organization.
That's absolutely who Thrive is. But the thing is, so this organization, Thrive, has a school program that they pretend is secular, but it's not, because it's all one organization.
Right.
There's not a separate. So that the school abstinence-only curriculum is called Best Choice. Best Choice.
And they even change it so that people kind of don't know exactly that it's abstinence-only education.
Right, they're not going to call it abstinence-only.
Which, by the way, I just want to throw this out there. Abstinence-only education is the worst sex education. It has horrible outcomes and is affecting our teens.
What are the outcomes?
I can put it down. I wrote these.
Oh, she wrote.
So, U.S. has the highest rate of STD infections in the industrialized world. 1 in 4 teens contract STDs currently in the United States. And higher teen pregnancy rates. The last we had checked, Missouri was the highest, but I looked again, and now it's actually mostly southern states that are, it's funny. If
We're
you look
losing
at it,
people. Come on.
If you look at the picture, I don't know if they can see this or not, but it's blue is the highest teen pregnancy rates.
YouTube may see it, but the people on the podcast
and then in the middle is green, which is the next
Belt,
highest, and then in all of the most liberal states have the lowest
blue states
pregnancy rates.
Like
New York, everything on the east, the north area, and then Washington.
So abstinence only programs have higher pregnancy and STD rates among their users.
Yeah, because they don't educate them about how to prevent those things. Condoms and birth control.
Because they're saying just use abstinence, and then if they don't, well, then then they're going to...
No, just don't do it. That's the only one that works. That's what they say.
So they leave kids ignorant. They intentionally want kids to be ignorant about their own bodies, about their own sexuality, about the importance and effectiveness of condoms when used correctly, when used consistently, about the effectiveness of birth control and the various birth control options. And like
just teaching them what the options are.
Right.
Like
Just
nobody told me anything about that when I was a kid. They're just like, don't do it. Or you get all these warts and stuff.
Not to say that there's anything wrong with that value system. If you want to wait until you're married, you're allowed to wait until you're married, and teach that to your kids. But it shouldn't be something that's enforced on every child, especially if some kids and teens are going to have sex.
Right. And it's a personal choice that each individual will make on their own, regardless of what any adult tells them that they want them to do. Right?
If your parents tell you to not do something, you're going to do it.
I mean, because everybody is sexual. Everybody, that's the thing. It's normal. Everybody, after puberty, you have sexual urges, you have sexual desires. Why do we pretend like this is not normal and healthy for everybody? You know?
Well, and I see beyond in the teens, I see the effects in adults, actually. A lot of my work is making up for a lot of lost sex education. Couples who are in sexless marriages, people who are very unhappy, who don't even know basic things about their body, never looked at their vaginas once, or women who've never had their own orgasm simply because they didn't feel safe to explore that.
Yes. Yeah, it's like pleasure has been taken completely out of this conversation. And it's so silly. We can't pretend as though the reason people are having sex, the vast majority of the time, we can't pretend like it's not for pleasure, because it is. I mean, yes, you can make a baby, but that's usually not the reason people are actually having sex. And it really messes people up for their whole lives. It does. When we don't talk about pleasure and we don't talk about sex in a positive way. Yeah. So I'm big on now talking about being sex positive. Yeah. And so like this abstinence only curriculum that Thrive Best Choice is teaching is sex negative. And
it's shaming.
Yeah, they're shaming kids. They're basically presenting sex and sexuality as a negative, harmful, shameful thing that you should fear sex, and it's scary, and that really can mess people up psychologically for their entire lives. And then they don't want to have open, honest communication with their partners, even if they do wait till marriage. Then they don't want to talk about it. They're not going to enjoy their sex life.
I have a whole host of clients that I'm just reteaching sex so that that's not shameful anymore, because that's what's happening. They can't communicate about it. The only way they do communicate is either with fighting or avoiding the topic altogether, but then they have unhappy sex lives. It's terrible. Yeah. So I actually going on that topic further, what are some of the medical inaccuracies you found?
Yeah. There are several. So first of all, Thrive Best Choice, other than just not having sex and being abstinent. Yeah. Other than that, they actually are telling kids that the most effective form of birth control is the natural family planning method, or the rhythm method.
The rhythm method.
Right. And so got pregnant on that one.
People get pregnant during that one.
It's awful. And the thing is, they actually have a list of citations of the sources that they use. And so for that, they actually cite the Archdiocese of St. Louis for that information. Very scientific.
Well, he is a known expert in sex, right? Wait, aren't they Catholic? Don't they not have sex?
Right, all the leaders who don't have any sex, I know, except with,
no.
Whatever, let's not get that far.
But anyway, we're not going to do that. Okay,
but Michael Jackson jokes.
So that is one major problem. And the thing is, so they are telling these kids that they tell kids, so technically, of course, it's true that there are days that girls are not ovulating. But so what they're saying, though, is there are days when girls are not fertile and not able to get pregnant. And so they talk about this, the rhythm method, natural family planning method.
But that's not true.
But
it's just they have a lower chance of getting pregnant. A lower
chance.
Right.
Totally, exactly. And I think they leave out the fact that when girls are young, their period cycles are not regular anyway. No. So you can't really time
you don't know when you're ovulating.
Even a lot of adults.
Right. I never knew. I didn't even know what ovulation was when I was a teenager. I was like, what? There's a second thing going on down there?
Well, that's when the duck goes and lays the egg, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And then they plant it in your uterus.
Right. And then the stork comes and they have sex.
Medically accurate, people.
Exactly. But so also, like, the big concern with that is, so you've got these teenagers that have been told this, so they're going to be thinking, the girls will be like, well, I I guess I'm not ovulating. I'm not going to be able to get pregnant. So we don't have to use a condom. We don't have to use any birth control. So not only are they more likely to get pregnant, but then what about STDs? They leave out that. They don't talk about condoms at all. It's just really what we need to be emphasizing, of course, correct and consistent condom use if kids are ever going to be sexually active. Right. So that's one medical inaccuracy there, and the citation of the Archdiocese. That's one. So they are also telling kids that you will be psychologically impacted, that if negatively, like for the remainder of your life, if you have sex before marriage, they don't use the word scar.
It changes you.
They say that's essentially they say that you will not be able to bond with partners as much in the future, and so there's no citation for that whatsoever. They make it up.
That's just a belief.
They're just making it up as they go.
And that's not necessarily true. I mean, I know plenty of people who've had sex before marriage that bonded quite well with their partners.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, I see the opposite sometimes happen. If people haven't had sex before marriage, they struggle to bond with their partner because they struggle to even talk and interact around sex.
Because you got to think about it, like somebody who has never had sex before marriage, if both of them, they're going in, they just got married, they're going in their marriage bed together, they're like, I don't know what to do with my hands.
Like literally, they don't know what to do with their hands. It's almost like you're a teenager exploring for the first time. And a lot of times that's very awkward, and they end up going to see a sex therapist. They do, because maybe they did consummate, but now they don't like sex, or maybe one of them likes sex, but the other one doesn't, or they just can't communicate at all about it, so it's become more reduced.
Right. And sometimes they're not able to talk about it because they have shame built into it, so they're not even able to talk to their partner about, oh, well, I had a little premature ejaculation. We're just going to not talk at all and
just hope for the best.
Topic. Yeah,
and it hurts you in so many ways because you're not communicating openly. You're not comfortable with that. So this curriculum definitely does that to people.
Well, and to be fair, it probably does change it for them because they've first made sex about shame, right? And so then now if they have sex, then they're going to feel shamed of themselves for having sex before marriage, and then they will actually they're probably creating the very thing that they're suggesting because they're shaming people for sex. And that shame doesn't go away when they get married. Even people who do believe in abstinence until marriage, that they struggle with shame still afterwards, because it's like, my whole life this has been something wrong, and now it's right, and they have a real difficulty transitioning. They still feel shameful around it.
Oh yeah, that can affect you for the rest of your life.
Like you said, right?
Exactly.
Well, so what other facts? Any interesting?
Well, so it's really it's laughable, but it's so sad at the same time. I have this slide where they call sperm male eggs. So we laugh at that because it's funny, but at the same time, like, oh my God, this obviously is a curriculum that was not written by any medical professional.
Yeah, they would call it a zygote, if anything. Sperm or zygote. That's it. Yeah.
So I mean, that's the thing is like obviously there's a difference between a sperm and an egg, and if you don't even know that basic fact, then you shouldn't be teaching sex education.
Yeah, I want the most educated people to be teaching my kids about these things, not the least educated
Well, and
people.
I think it should be pointed out that these individuals who teach the Thrive Best Choice curriculum, they go into these public schools, and these people are not qualified in any way to teach. They're not even certified teachers.
How are they picked? How are they chosen? Is it the school boards choosing them?
So
are they paying these people to come into their schools and teach
The school
inaccuracies?
districts do not pay Thrive, and that's part of Thrive's selling point is they say, oh, well, you don't have to pay us. Right, it's free to the school district.
Free miseducation.
So, exactly. Free harmful. Yeah, exactly.
Free harmful education that'll destroy your child for life.
I'm sure there are some white supremacist groups that'll come in and teach for free as well.
Oh,
like,
wow,
totally.
that would be helpful.
Like, sure, do we really want that? No, we don't. We want accurate things and not hateful things.
Didn't you mention a law earlier before we were taping? Tell us about the something about abortion and stuff.
Yeah. So Missouri state law actually says that you cannot have a sex ed curriculum that has been written by anyone who provides abortion services. And Planned Parenthood has really good, comprehensive, unbiased, fact-based inclusive, LGBT inclusive sex
education.
ed.
Yeah.
And so it's really, we need to change those laws for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there are other curriculum curricula that we can use as well that are like that, but it is unfortunate that we have that law.
Yeah, well, and I mean, how would you define that? I mean, plenty of people could be in some form of, like, even if you're not providing the abortions, you're still providing education about that as an option.
Well, it's
so does that make it
provider specifically.
Well,
no, it also says if you give referrals.
You give referrals, which, anybody who's in a referral business, that cuts out any doctors, any nurses, any people who really know accurate information about sex.
Right.
Yeah, because generally
that's terrible.
Yeah. Yes.
And you know what? Just to put in this is his own like little side topic. I think that it baffles me that people put so much energy into abortion laws and they don't put any energy into prevention. Like, if you really don't want abortion, like, and I'm not going one way or the other on this particular issue, but what I am saying is, why not focus on, if you're pro-life, why not focus on condoms and birth control? That is the easiest way to prevent abortions, is to have things ahead of time that can prevent them from getting to that space. I think abortions end up being higher as a result of teens and adults not being aware of the ways to prevent that from happening.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. That's the thing. If you really want to prevent abortion, then you would, you want to prevent unintended pregnancies in the first place.
Right.
And they think just telling kids not to have sex will do that. But of course that's absurd. And I grabbed my phone because I wanted to pull up the actual slides, because there are so many, but like the worst of the worst, because when you ask about the medical inaccuracies, there are so many. I don't want to forget any.
You're like, there's so many bad things here.
Yes.
So while she's doing that, why don't I ask you, Angela, are there some science-based organizations that do teach sex ed in public schools?
Yes,
like, so there's ASECT. What are they?
ASECT, AASECT, has a curriculum that goes across the board, like from childhood to middle school age to adulthood, of different curriculum. You can go to the ASECT website to learn more, but they have like 50 different books that you can purchase. One of my favorite ones that I was talking about is it's one for elementary school kids, and it's called It's Perfectly Normal. It's a cartoon book that really clearly talks about the body. I know, you would love this book. It goes over parts of the body. It goes over making sex natural. It puts it in age-appropriate content. Right. And then even as you go up, there are different books that are offered for middle school that are talking about gender, talking about sexuality and prevention. But like really, so ASECT is one. I know there's SSSS, which is the scientific study of sex. I don't know all the S's, but they all have to do with science and sex. They have some curriculum suggestions. And of course, like she said, Planned Parenthood. Those are all the best curriculums that are out there. But the biggest thing is it needs to be under the umbrella of comprehensive sex education, where they're covering everything, not just pieces.
And LGBTQ inclusive, of course, not leaving them out of the conversation.
Because they do exist in the world, to be fair.
Recognizing they exist. They're part of this conversation.
So do they not talk about that at all as part of Thrive?
Yes. So Thrive Best Choice is heteronormative, and so they like to
Let's
claim.
say what that is.
So heteronormative is just assuming that everybody's heterosexual.
Okay.
Yeah, and only talking to that population.
Exactly. And so Thrive, wants to act as though, we're not outwardly, anti-LGBT.
We just don't talk about it. Yeah.
But that is so harmful to these kids who are sitting in on this lesson, and of course they're sexual beings as well. They one day are going to be having sex, or are already. So we need to include them and just recognize that they exist. They have sex as well. There are different kinds of sex. It's not all one kind. So that's important. That needs to be a part of any sex. And LGBT students can get STIs as well. Yep. They need to know about condom use for sure. And I think also for trans and gender nonconforming students, this is really important because Thrive Best Choice is really, they promote gender stereotypes. The entire curriculum is built upon, basically like boys are aggressive, Boys,
women are submissive.
Women are
and should be in the
submissive.
kitchen barefoot.
They may as well.
Yeah.
Pregnant, cooking him a sandwich.
They may as
Right?
well.
Is that
They
it?
may
Yeah.
as well just go ahead and say that.
So
right.
there's some scientific evidence that points to you making sandwiches is going to be good for your
I know
relationship.
that.
Well,
I'm sure they
hold
want
on.
me to be making sandwiches.
It
and not
goes
doing
both
this.
ways.
Yeah.
She loves it when I help around the house, and I love it when she makes me a sandwich.
Yeah.
Like, really.
Yeah, but that's different.
Like, you
want to
make
both
you want to
helping
make
each
your
other.
spouse happy, male or female.
True.
Show up when they're having a bad day and make them a sandwich. They will love you forever. Just hand it to them and then walk away. It's like,
Why did you
I
make
feel
me
so
a sandwich?
loved.
That's
True.
so
Yeah.
sweet.
So we can look up those slides
Right.
and post them as a part of the podcast at the end. But why don't we keep going?
Yeah.
Why were you escorted by the police from St. Charles High? I want to know that.
Yeah, it's a fun story.
Yeah.
There was I started this activism. I started the group Expose Thrive. Officially the group started in February. I've been doing this activism since December when I first learned that Thrive Best Choice was in originally 20 school districts, now only 7, fortunately. So yeah.
So some have dropped it.
13
Is that-
school districts have decided to end their relationship
Wow.
with Thrive Best
Wow.
Choice since we started doing this. So it's
Awesome.
That's
really
amazing.
So you're doing good work.
That's
yeah,
amazing.
thank you. 7 left.
7 to go.
and
What about St. Charles?
But so regarding St. Charles, so what had happened was because of the pressure from us in Expose Thrive, they finally decided to have a Thrive Best Choice parent curriculum night because prior to that, no one had ever seen the Thrive Best Choice curriculum. So
So they're just teaching it to the kids already?
they had
and
been
had not-
teaching for years, and all of
Never
these
shown the
public school
parents.
districts, no parent had ever seen the curriculum. But not only that, no public school administrator or board member had actually ever seen the curriculum. So basically,
What? That's
all
crazy.
of these public schools had just been assuming that, giving Thrive the benefit of the doubt that it's medically accurate and that it's a good quality curriculum. But truly, no one had ever seen the entire
They didn't do their due
curriculum.
diligence. If you're a board
Exactly.
A little
member
bit
and
it
you're
was
hiring
laziness, it
educators,
sounds like.
Exactly.
they're just like, yeah, we'll do. Pretty much, they knew a guy that knew a guy that knew something
Exactly.
about
Like,
sex.
teach
and they
our
gave
kids
him a
about sex
job.
because we don't want to do it
Exactly.
anyways.
Completely.
That's
So
usually
they
that.
outsource it, so they don't have to deal with it, and they let them come in, and but no one ever checked up on this curriculum. So we started demanding to see it. We need to see this curriculum that you're teaching in public schools.
Yeah.
So finally, then, the St. Charles School District held this Thrive Best Choice Parent Curriculum Night, and so what they did was they allowed us, those of us who were not in the district. I'm a Parkway parent, but Parkway used to have Thrive Best Choice, and I wanted to learn about this curriculum because I hadn't been able to, and Thrive wouldn't answer my questions. The districts wouldn't answer my questions because they didn't have the curriculum. So I'm thinking I need to know what they're teaching. So I wanted to go to this parent curriculum night because there had never been a parent curriculum night before. This was the first one. So me and a bunch of other people with Exposed Thrive, we went to St. Charles High School, and they allowed us to come in, but they told us that if we were not, basically like special VIP invited guests, if we were not the parents of kids that they specifically invited to attend who have kids that are in the sex ed class that semester, that we would have to sit, this was all in the gym, and we had to sit in the back in the bleachers, and then like the special VIP.
So pretty much they're like, go to the back of the bus.
Exactly. And they said here.
Because you have opinions and we don't want to hear those.
Well, right, because that's
Right.
the thing. Not only did we sit in the back, but they said the rules were we had to be quiet. We could not ask a single question because they're terrified to actually have to answer for their curriculum. They don't want that information getting out there, which was abundantly clear. I mean, if you have an actual, true, fact-based curriculum, what are you afraid of?
So really, they're just
You
putting
know?
on a
Yes.
show.
So
Really, they're putting on a show. They're like,
Completely.
we're here to be open
sales
about this,
pitch.
but anybody who has actual opinions or who will talk to us, we're going to put them out the back.
bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It's a sales pitch. They don't actually want to say what exactly they're teaching. So we all had to sit in the back in this roped off section of the bleachers. They've got this little special VIP roped off section
They
for their
literally
parents.
segregated you.
And so
Literally,
right.
with rope.
So what happened? The reason I got escorted out. So this was literally 10 minutes before the presentation even had begun. And I walked to the special section, the VIP section on the other side of this rope, because there was a woman there that I had talked to prior that I wanted to talk to a little bit more. So I sat down, and she happily engaged and wanted to talk to me as well, a parent in the district. And we were just sitting there making polite conversation 10 minutes before the presentation started. And then a police officer walked up to me and said, "Nope, ma'am, you got to go back over there to the bleachers." teachers. And I said, well, okay, I will. We still have 10 minutes, and I'm talking to this woman. We're just making conversation. And he was like, nope, you got to go. And it should be noted, by the way, there were literally 6 armed police officers have you ever been to a parent curriculum night at a public school that has 6 armed police officers that are walking around? Like, for what? For the purpose of intimidating us so that we would know our place and not ask any questions to actually get this information about the curriculum out there. I mean, they are really, really trying to hide the information of what is being taught from the public. And so he told me I had to, well, then the superintendent walked over and said, okay, well, if she's refusing to go back, take her out. He told that cop.
They were looking for you. They were targeting you.
Completely. Because Thrive already knew who I was, that I am this activist speaking out against them in public schools. Absolutely, they did target me. And they said, any way we can get her out of there, let's do it. So a police officer escorted me out. He threatened to arrest me. He said that he could arrest me for trespassing, even though I had been rightfully admitted to the building, but because I was in this roped off section, he said it could be trespass. Anyway, I didn't get arrested. But I didn't get arrested. That's good news.
It's a public space too.
Exactly.
That is open to the public.
Exactly. And so it was on the news, and Fox 2 did a news story about it. Which then the cool thing about that was we got to talk. I talked about the problems with this curriculum and how it shames kids and makes kids feel dirty. So I was happy that at least that message got out there
to a bigger group of people.
Exactly. They're trying to hide this curriculum so much that they're willing to threaten arrest and have a mom, kicked out who's only trying to learn about.
Who wasn't doing anything. You were just talking.
Literally talking.
You're not allowed to talk in this section.
I mean, we have video of it. I mean, it's
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Huh?
Wow. That's very silly.
And St. Charles School District also threatened to have
the St. Charles City School District.
St. Charles here?
The city,
Yeah,
that's
where we are.
The city of St. Charles School District. They also threatened to have me and a couple others arrested another time at a board meeting because they limited the public comments at their board meeting to 3 because they knew what we were there to talk about.
Oh.
And
they said 3 people could talk.
They said only 3 people can talk.
Then it's not public comment. Because then they could just line up 3 of their own people.
And there were a bunch of their own parents in the district who didn't get to talk, and parents and residents. And so then when we said, well, we really we want to talk about this here at the board meeting. We have information about this. This is important. And they said, nope, you don't get to talk. And then they threatened to have us arrested then, and they kicked us out then. So St. Charles has come a long way. I will say that they don't do that anymore.
When was that?
So that first me getting escorted out at the parent curriculum night was in March. And then again, April, I believe, is when they threatened to have us arrested. But since then, I've gone to board meetings every month. They have not threatened to have me arrested, and I have been able to speak. I think that they understand that did not look good for them.
I think they just realized, we're
like
trying to stifle
people.
Somebody's freedom of speech here in a public space. Well, maybe we should back off.
The hardest thing about all this is that it's stifling facts.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm sorry. I'm losing it a little bit. I'm like, I just want to be up in arms.
Here, put your arms up then. That's how you do it.
That's all I can do. I'm just so mad because I spend my life educating people about sex and healthy relationships. So for them to not even be willing to hear the facts about that is really hard for me because I see all the negative impacts of these education programs. And it, like you said, it expands the rest of their lives. Well, so you have another question you want to ask, Josh?
Yeah. Like, what gaps are there in sex ed? Even among science-based sex ed, are they covering homosexuality and other types? Are they covering masturbation? Are they covering things like anal sex? Are they covering any of these topics, which are a part of a lot of people's sex lives? That's reality.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, pleasure is completely out of the equation.
Oh, they're not allowed to have pleasure while they have sex.
They don't. It's not right. It's basically it's not.
It's only about procreation.
And that's right. So that is why I now am addressing this from a perspective of understanding what sex positivity is versus sex negativity. We need to be sex positive. It is harmful to kids to raise them in a sex negative culture, like what this Thrive Best Choice curriculum teaches, where you are shaming and you are teaching that sex is scary and it's all risky behavior and it's just dangerous and that's all it is.
Danger.
As opposed to, well, that sex is a normal, healthy part of life. We are sexual beings. We have sexual desires. And
if you're teaching them that it's a dangerous thing, you're creating a Pavlovian fear response. Anytime the topic of sex comes up, even talking about it, much less actually having sex. And she has that in her room. People come in who have that anxiety about sex.
Every day.
And
built by that.
It's what you deal with all the time, I'm sure.
It is. And actually, there's some stats on this. Hold on.
Oh, she got her notebook out.
So for people who do get comprehensive sex education, 16% fewer boys and 15% fewer girls actually have sex like in their teen years. They end up waiting longer because what happens is that when you have the information as a child, as an adult about sex, then you can make a logical decision about when you have sex and why you have sex. When there's that fear-based response,
it's misinformation. That's a big part of it too, is that you're teaching them inaccuracies. And guess what? Kids are smart. When they did the DARE program in schools, they told kids, "Oh yeah, you take one hit of crack, you're addicted for life, or if you smoke any weed, you'll die immediately."
You'll be like laying in an alley or a ditch.
Then the reality is they see actual people doing drugs, and they're like, "Oh, they're all having fun." They didn't talk about that
and they're
at
not
all.
dead.
They're not dead. So
then they
unfortunately dive in, and they may make really poor choices when it comes to that.
Unsafely.
Yeah. And what we want is for teens and adults to be logical about their choices, and the second thing is to understand how they're impacting others, make empathetic choices so they're not harming people around them. I think miseducation also leads, now this is an opinion, but I'm sure there could be facts around it. I think it leads to more sexual acting out and people not realizing, like, for example, consent conversations. That's one of the biggest things that I think I am still teaching this to adults, consent conversations at every level. And
do they teach that in school?
Not in the
Thrive
abstinence
Best
only.
Choice curriculum doesn't once mention
they
consent.
don't. And so, like, for example, I think that
so what are they thinking? You just okay, they're definitely only abstinence
could
only
be happening
because you're consenting by marriage.
Because there's no consent conversation, and they don't know they can say no. And some of those can be prevented too, just by understanding. Oh, has she verbally consented to this? No, this isn't something you're allowed to do. A lot of adults and teens are doing all nonverbal communication, but like, think of how easy it is to misread nonverbal communication.
For the person to be empowered themselves, that they don't have to have sex if they're not
that you're allowed to say
fully
no.
comfortable. And that's why actual comprehensive sex ed actually delays sexual activity because kids don't feel like they are pressured as much. They're not going to do it if they really don't want to, because they understand they don't have to, because it's all their choice.
And on that, like, if you're having a fear response when any sexual thing is happening, a lot of people freeze up. They have like
instead
a
of
deer
saying,
in the
I'm
headlights,
not ready for
so
this,
they're not
I don't
want
to do this.
It's like you're literally breaking people.
Exactly.
I think I really believe that it's affecting like men who could have known certain things like that. Maybe they could have had that conversation, but I don't know. I think it would reduce some of those rates of sexual acting out and sexual harm,
sexual assault.
Sorry,
sure. No, you're fine. I think this is what people don't understand is a lot of people think that rape and sexual assault is only done by like this really bad guy, like in a dark alley or something.
It's a stranger that you don't know.
Often it's a date rape sort of situation.
Or I think a lot of guys,
somebody you know.
Exactly. And I think even like a lot of guys who do that. And girls can absolutely sexually assault people as well. Nobody should ever touch anybody without their consent. Right. But of course, more often it will be boys and men. And I think that oftentimes it is those boys and men who are doing that, especially haven't learned about consent, and they don't. A lot of times they don't even know, and that's not an excuse, but they don't know that it's wrong, and they just assume I can just do this because it's why not? I can just grab, or I can just do this, but it's like, no, that's actually not okay, and we have to have these conversations. And I also talk a lot about the thing is the problem with Thrive Best Choice. Not only do they not talk about consent, but the whole abstinence only and telling kids that you need to wait till marriage and that's the best choice to wait till marriage. And we're not going to give you all the full information if you don't do that. What they're doing is they're taking the bodily autonomy away from each individual child. They're not empowering kids to know that each child gets to make the decision for themselves about when they choose to consent to sex with another consenting partner.
Right.
They like Thrive is making that decision for them. Thrive is telling them the best time for you to do that is when you're married. But they don't get to decide that. Each person decides that for themselves.
And it takes away the levels. So like think
levels?
of
Are you talking about Dungeon Master levels? Like, are we playing D&D and I didn't realize
think of the
roll to defend.
Let me tell you. All right. So think of all the different levels of
that.
touch, of sex and sexuality. If all there is you're not allowed to do this, then think of like every consent conversation that needs to happen. You need consent to kiss. You need consent to grab somebody, like you said, or touch or hold hands. Yeah. It takes away the ability to talk at every one of those levels. There's either all or nothing. There's no, you know what, I might be open to making out right now, but I'm not really sure if I want to go beyond that. So no touching. I mean, like, it takes away their ability to consent to things they might be okay with, but other things that they're not okay with.
Because they're not comfortable talking about sex.
Exactly. Yes. That's what I was just going to say, is having these conversations helps people to be more comfortable talking about this with partners, with potential partners themselves, about what they're comfortable with.
Right. So going off that, do you talk to your kids about sex?
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do you do that? Because I have a 2-year-old. We don't really have many conversations at all yet.
Yeah, pretty young.
But so how do you have those conversations?
You know, I understand the feeling that a lot of parents have of nervousness and fear of having the conversation, discomfort, because I've come
with
a long
children.
way.
Yeah, because
I don't want you to have sex. I get it. I get the feeling.
My own mother, now as an adult, she said she didn't ever listen to a single episode that we've done because it's her son talking about sex. She could never hear that. She just didn't want to hear that. I was like, are you serious? I've done 45 episodes. Listen to one episode. I was like, okay, there's one we did with the bread lady. We barely talked about sex. Listen to that episode.
Well, it's not like you're sitting here having a graphic conversation about your own
I do sometimes.
sex life.
We do.
Well,
it depends on how much caffeine I've had. She tries to keep me
But that's the
less
thing
caffeinated.
is, it is, and I think that actually is a really good point, that when you talk about your mom that way, I think that's, of course, very common.
Yeah.
Parents freak out about their kids being sexual beings.
Yeah.
But we have to understand
they see
and
them as
accept
babies
that.
still.
Yes, we cannot control other people. We cannot control our kids.
Babies having babies.
Well, and that's what it leads to, is that they're going to probably be more likely to have babies, unfortunately, unintended. But so for me as a parent, so I have 3 kids, ages 8, 6, and 5, and we have many times had conversations about sex, and I think that what's important for people to understand is that it's not the talk. It is not one talk. It is ongoing conversations.
Right.
I'm sure you know all about this and talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
My talk was actually the day before I was getting married to my wife. My mother came into my bedroom and she said, "Josh, I need you to know about the clitoris." And I was like,
wow.
"Oh my God, Mom, I'm 25.
You're like, I need to know about that a long time ago.
That should have been.
Tell me this when I was 13.
Yeah, like really.
Right.
I didn't know about it at 13 at all. Yeah, I wish I had known.
I love that story so much. And I didn't even get a talk. I learned from my sisters.
Oh yeah, you learned from other kids.
I'm self-taught, obviously, because I'm a sex therapist now.
Well, now you actually have been educated as well.
I remember when I had my first serious boyfriend in high school, my mom sensed maybe it could potentially, be heading in that direction that I would have sex. And she said to me, "Sally, if you have, or you'll be grounded if you have sex. I'll ground you if you have sex."
Oh,
and of course, I'm just thinking, okay, how about I just won't tell you?
Yeah,
because kids ultimately are going to make that choice
do what they want
for themselves.
And wouldn't you want them to tell you so that they can ask you questions if they're worried or
so
concerned
it hurts
about
a
things?
parent-child relationship.
Right.
That's exactly like you're harming that. You're making the kid
feel like they're doing something illegal in their house. It's
immoral.
Like my family was the same way. Like
Something
in my
wrong.
family, even masturbation. You're in trouble if you masturbate.
Which, again, another prevention
that's
for
your own
abortions
business.
could be masturbation.
Yes. Actually, and so
throw that one out there.
Regarding masturbation, so as a parent, so my oldest, when she was either 4 or 5, was humping humping blankets.
Sure.
Okay, so and so she would be doing that, and this was really before I knew a lot about the sex positive parenting, sex positive movement. And I started talking to friends, and I started reading up and learning about it, because initially I see her doing that. It's like, oh my God, what's she doing?
Yeah, she's 5.
And
You're
she's
like, what do I do? Yeah.
And it's so common. I have since learned, how common that is.
Even babies touch themselves when you open up their diaper. They're like, what's this? And it's like, even at like 2,
Right. Like, it's not like they know what they're doing, but they're just,
they're just exploring.
Good.
Yeah.
And so, I learned that, we don't need to freak out about these things. That's kind of like a make or break moment where you can really harm your child if you respond with, oh my God, what are you doing? And
because they learn through modeling. So how you model your behavior is how they're going to learn.
Right.
So like my husband and I, we had talked with her like, oh, hey, we see, what you're doing. And I, that's a normal thing where, to touch your private parts, it feels good. Or to touch your vulva. Actually, we use the actual word, that feels good. But, that's something that you should only do in private. Only do it in your bedroom.
Setting a boundary around it so she understands.
Just close the door.
Yeah, just do it in private or in the bathroom or the bedroom. That's the other thing. I think because people can't have the conversation, then they can't even give the appropriate boundaries around it, so that it's like, hey, this is okay. It's not a big deal. So it's
either all or nothing.
Yeah, it's either all or nothing. Right. And it's a bad mentality to have about sex.
So speaking of kids, have you ever... You're an activist.
Yes.
Do you ever worry about your activism affecting your kids? Because I got to say, adults can be petty.
Yeah.
And some of those teachers...
What? Adults are petty? I've never
do you worry
heard
about
this.
that at all?
Oh, yes. Many are. But I don't really worry about it. No. Honestly, I feel proud and very happy that my kids see, that mommy speaks up for what's right. Mommy speaks up against injustice and speaks up about, helping people and making a difference, and in favor of, science and facts being taught and promoted, and healthy relationships and healthy open communication, all of these things, which I talk to my kids about as a parent as well. So I don't live in fear. It's just not how I think. It's not how I live my life. But yes, there are definitely some strange people out there, but I don't really live my life, worrying about that. But I got haters on both sides. I know what you're saying for sure.
So one last thing while we're talking about sex education and religion, have you ever considered running for school board? or any other political office? You're making a difference with Thrive right now, but have you ever considered being on a board like that? So that you can
change from the inside.
You're the boss.
Infiltrate.
Be the boss. Be right in there.
I think it would be cool. At this point, I don't really know that it's something that I am considering doing. Okay. Not to rule out ever one day.
I'm just curious.
But because I am so honest about calling out this harmful stuff and that I see going on, and challenging the status quo, and it's difficult sometimes to do that within for an elected official.
I think they can make the most change.
So,
actually, those board members chose the curriculum.
Absolutely.
That's where I think a lot of young people don't really go into. They don't try to make a difference by being a part of the system. They're like, F the system.
Yeah. So, which I think,
I'm just curious
we're going to probably
and that's actually
into
the
politics,
next topic we're going to actually focus on is activism.
Activism.
Activism, not Activision.
Activision.
I wrote it down as Activision. And apathy. So, do you protest? Have you been to a protest?
Yeah.
How does that work out? Do you ever get run off by the police or tear gas shot in your face? Or?
Oh, wow.
I have not been tear gassed.
You have not been
gassed. I know
gassed.
many people who have.
Yeah.
And many people who have often kind of judge and look down on you if you haven't.
You haven't been gassed?
That's how you've leveled up in the protesting world, right?
Right. They have street cred on that, and I don't. Therefore, they are real activists, and I'm not. So I don't really buy into that.
Yeah.
But anyway, no. I have not been tear gassed.
So does protesting work in our modern world? I I don't know if it does. I'm asking.
I think it depends on the protest. I think it depends on your demands. I think it depends on what you're protesting on.
Organization, perhaps.
Organization, right. What your methods are.
Actually having a message and goals.
Like having a specific plan.
Yes.
That's what I was thinking.
Yes.
You know, because when you think of the civil rights movement, like there was actually like very specific goals
Like
they
they
were
wanted
working
end
towards.
segregation
There were
and
different ways that
equal
people
rights.
working on it, but they had kind of like these like principles they were focusing on. And I think sometimes that's where people are getting lost with protests and activism, is not being very clear on what they're trying to accomplish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's why for me, it's been so rewarding to do the activism that I have been doing, where I can really feel like I'm making real change happen. And it's on a smaller level, on a local level at these school boards, going to these school board meetings, talking directly to these administrators, organizing and recruiting, getting other community members and parents involved. And we are making change happen. Now, there are many other serious problems going on in this society, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to
Wait,
fight.
you think we got problems?
What?
Yeah, sorry to break
No,
it to
we
you.
live in a utopia.
No, it's
Wait,
wonderful.
are we in a utopian future or a dystopian future? Yeah, you
Well,
gotta
but
ask
to be
that.
fair, let's talk about that. I actually,
So I actually
oh.
wanted to ask a question about that. Like, what do you think about the protesters like in Occupy Wall Street? Like, they did this big thing where they had these big groups of people out there, and news reporters were coming up to them, and they were like, What do you want? What's your goals? And none of them could answer it.
Yeah.
They were like, we don't like this.
Right.
But they didn't really have any
Right.
goals.
Right.
What do you think about protesters like that? Like, and I remember seeing like interviews with them. They're like, we don't want like leadership. We want it to be
Yes.
the community making the
Yes.
decision. I'm like,
yeah, but somebody's
yeah,
kind of got to
but you
take
kind of have to
leadership
have a
role.
message, and
Yes.
you have to have set goals and
I've heard people
values.
say that.
And I just feel like that was such a waste of time.
Some people say that about Ferguson as well, and about against police brutality, same thing, where they say they don't want any leaders. But I mean, the leaders help amplify the message and break it down and to people that maybe don't understand.
Right.
Part of protests and activism needs to be educating the general public
Right.
about the problem, like breaking it down specifically. These are the problems going on. Some
And-
people
and
just
having
don't
goals.
understand.
And having goals.
Having the goals.
Like
So
I
then
talked
taking it
to
step
a
further.
previous guest, David Wraith, about that specifically, and I asked like, what do you think would be a
I know
good
David.
change? What would be a good change when it came to Ferguson kind of things? And he said, police boards, they would have a independent investigations for
Yes,
any
yes.
police
Yes.
shootings, where it's not internal, it's not people they know that they work with every day doing the investigation. I thought that was brilliant.
Yes,
It's like,
yes.
It was.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's definitely true.
You gotta have
Needs
goals.
and in that case with police brutality, better police training, more focus on de-escalation.
Yeah. They've shown that's a big one. That
for
really
sure.
helps.
But that's the thing is we have to ask, how exactly we not only educate the public about the problems, but also about the solutions, and how do we hold those in power accountable to make those changes. So I think that's really important.
Well, and I want to go back to a point you were making earlier. There are a lot of problems in the world, and I think that part of what leads to this apathy, Josh, is that
I'm apathetic.
No, is that I think people feel a little powerless. Like that there's all these different things. Like if you just watch any documentary on Netflix, you are going to like end that documentary feeling completely depressed because they don't give you these like action plans.
But
or,
they
like,
ruin McDonald's
they say,
for
oh,
you.
this is all horrible. And it's
Yeah.
good to know about those things, but it's helpful to know what's the next step. And so what I want everybody listening here to know is that you don't have to take on every political
Right.
thing.
Right.
Yes,
You
there's
don't
a
have
lot
to
of
save the
problems.
world.
You don't have to save the entire world.
Try to change it.
But you can save your part of the world. Like right now, you're working on sex education in
Expose
schools, and that's a
Thrive. Yeah.
valuable thing to work on. I work on sex education and healthy sex and marriages. And
I do the
when you
tech
kind
side.
of hone in on one or two things that you're really passionate about, but then you work on those, then you can start to see that change. Whereas if people try to like take on the entire world or like, oh, there's so many problems, then I think you feel just overwhelmed and you don't feel like you can do anything.
Yes.
And
it is interesting that, talking about people that get petty and people that are negative and haters, whatever you want to call them.
The hater's gonna hate.
They are. They definitely are. And the thing is that there are some people who they want you to be protesting exactly the same way they're protesting, doing the exact same type of activism about the exact same thing.
Right.
Even when you're really accomplishing good things in whatever type of activism you're doing.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's a matter of not letting them take you off your game and not important. I mean, it is important to be speaking out about all of these problems, but you can only do so much.
Right.
And I think it's
you
okay
can't go
for
to
each
every
person.
single protest. You
Right.
You can't make every cause your cause.
Yes, and like this is my specialty. This is where I am.
That's what you're
feel
most
like I'm
passionate
making
about.
change, and that should be okay and respected.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
understand that
absolutely.
Totally. So why do you think so few of our generation don't vote? Like, it's really terrible how few people have actually voted in this presidential election.
I agree.
50% of eligible voters didn't even register.
Yes.
So automatically you halved the population. And then 50% of those people didn't show up. 50% of those people, less than 50% of those people voted for our current president. So you're literally talking about 12%, 12.5% of the eligible population to vote showed up and voted for the winning president.
Yes.
What do you think about that? Like, how do we change that?
I actually
Fix
have,
the world, please.
well,
Fix the world.
I do actually have a lot of thoughts on this, and so on the one hand, it upsets me that those people didn't vote, but at the same time, the reason those people didn't vote, we
Apathy.
have to listen. Well, but there's a reason that they're apathetic, and the politicians need to be working for the people, and until they actually are representing the needs of the burdened, stressed out, working class, middle class, poor minorities of this country.
But it's the other way around. It's the other way around. If you don't vote, then you're not going to be represented. That's the point, is that if you don't go out there and vote for who you want to represent you, they can't represent you.
Right.
Well,
So it's kind of a...
I know, they're both
like,
true.
it's kind of a both sides where it's like...
Well, and you need to vote at the smaller level, too. That actually has more impact on your life day to day. But even going back to that, like, I think sometimes the politicians aren't even being clear about what they're standing for. We were talking about that the other day. Like, they're
the
wishy-washy.
Democratic Party came out with their, like, message for the year, and they were making fun of it on... like the Jim Jeffries show, and it's like, we are Democrats and we like all these things, but we don't want to, unnecessarily burden you with our opinion, but we have a very strong opinions, but you're not going to really hear those.
We need strong opinions. We need people to take charge and say,
100%.
this is what's right.
Absolutely. And
why do politicians do that?
And that's similar to the administrators I've been dealing with, who seem like there's that weakness, there's the cowardice of not being able to stand up and say, this is what's right. We're going to do what's right. And that in schools for the students, and for the legislators, for the people. But
even if they disagree with you, just tell me what your opinion on it is. Yeah.
Well, the problem is the corporate donations. I mean, that is the problem, is that these legislators are like owned by corporations. So they're representing the interests of the wealthy corporate
the money
donors.
that they want to keep getting so that they can keep running for elections.
So then, and so then they're not honest about, fighting for what's right for the people, because it might upset the wealthy corporate donors, and that is at the heart of the problem. So,
and then they don't create that fire that makes us want to vote. I mean, I still voted, but like, it is hard to vote for somebody if you don't even know like really where they stand and what they're going to try and accomplish.
Yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
That takes time.
It takes a lot of time.
It does. So speaking about that, like when Trump was elected, like it seemed to me like Facebook exploded. All of a sudden, everybody on Facebook has a political opinion. People who would just always post memes of grandmas playing with kittens, and that's all they posted.
Puppies and babies.
All of a sudden, they were like, I am mad as hell. What is going on? I'm like, holy crap. All of a sudden, everybody's political. And I'm like, where were you at the polls?
Yeah.
Like, because I know for a fact a lot of them didn't vote. Like, people who never spoke about it. Like, what do you think about that? The Facebook culture that's kind of changed. Like, what do you think about it?
Well, it's interesting. I know like a lot of people of color have been saying, oh, now all these white people are suddenly, noticing how bad it is. We already knew how bad it was.
It's been happening the whole time, right?
Right. Like, we already knew people were racist. You guys didn't know that?
Oh, we knew that. It's just when you elect one, then you notice it a lot more.
Yeah.
Like, how did this happen?
I mean, that's the thing, is that Trump is so blatantly like hateful, disrespectful, misogynistic, racist, xenophobic, all these things, that it's so in your face that it makes people speak out who never spoke out before. But there were problems
the crap
before.
Out of me. Like, I was so confused. Like, when it came out, the grab him by the pussy thing, where he was being taped and he said, he's so rich he can just go up and grab women by the pussy and get away with it. I was like, okay, that's the death nail in his coffin. There's no way this man will be elected president. I was like, thank God.
Right.
And his polls went up.
It's like, what?
Because he got more coverage. It's just name recognition, because he created so much controversy around the crazy things he said, he just kept saying them. He's like, it's working. Screw it.
I think a lot of people also just thought, oh, well, he just does his own thing. He's independent. He's not, just basically he's not just phony and fake working for someone else. Right. Of course, he was phony because everything he said was a lie and it was all for himself.
And, I heard Republicans saying, oh, yeah, he said he's going to ban abortion. There's not a single quote out there of him saying that. And he may want to do it. I don't know. But they said all these things that he's going to do. I'm like, he never said any of that. You don't watch the news, clearly.
Right.
But like we were saying earlier, I mean, while I'm not necessarily a Republican, the Republicans do have a way of backing each other up that I feel like the Democrats don't. We just don't seem to have that same sense of I don't know,
unity.
Bringing people together. Unity. They're using the words for me. I don't have words this morning.
No, that's actually a really good point, and this is why we now do have Trump as president, is because on the left we're so busy trying to get ideological purity and try to convince everyone that they need to only be this kind of leftist believer, and if you're not exactly this way,
then you're not accepted.
Then you're not you're not an ally. We don't want nothing to do with you. You're done, and we won't work so that's why a lot of people on the left
you have to be perfectly politically correct 100%, and that just doesn't make sense because people are going to say things that may offend you. Yeah. We may have said many things. Actually,
in this show,
I say many things that offend people on a daily basis. She had to point at me and say, "No, Josh."
I did. We were at a networking event. I was like, "Honey, this is not appropriate." Yes. I won't say it.
I have dirty jokes. I love dirty jokes.
Be filtered though. I talk about sex all day, so even me, I don't always know when I've crossed the line. And he's like, "Angela, so they don't want to talk about."
So speaking of that, recently, something called pink pussy hats? What are these?
Tell us about pink pussy hats.
What is a pink pussy hat? And I want to know what is going on with, because I added you added me as a friend on Facebook recently before we had you, and I got to see all this chaos kind of
a lot
happen.
Of pink pussy hat chaos.
What is a pink pussy hat?
And why is it relevant?
Oh gosh. So the pink pussy hats are those little pink hats with cat ears.
Oh, okay.
That
like
women, a lot of it looks like a pussycat. But so a lot of women during the Women's March, right after Trump became president, wore these hats.
Oh,
and it
I gotcha.
Symbolized because he talked about grabbing women by the pussy and sexually assaulting women.
Openly.
A lot of women responded to the misogyny and the promotion of rape, sexual assault by taking ownership of their own bodies, their own genitals, and saying, I've got this pussy hat for me. This makes me feel empowered. It makes me feel liberated.
And they're unified.
This is my body. No one else gets to touch it or violate me. So it was a hat that was about anti-misogyny. It was pro-feminism. It was anti-rape. It was anti-sexual assault. And that is the purpose of that hat. Me personally, I don't really like the color pink. I don't really wear hats that much. I never had one, but I have a lot.
It's hard to wear hats on curly hair, to be fair. Right. The only ones are big floppy ones that look really good for our heads.
Yeah, it makes it too frizzy. You're right. But so anyway, a lot of women had these hats, and I understand the purpose of them. And it was all of those things that are good things that we all on the left can get behind and can support. Those are great things.
But can they all?
So, we should. Yeah. Right.
So anyway. On Facebook, I don't know exactly how it got started, but you were part of a protest. You joined a group that was going to protest. I think it was a transsexual person who had been shot by the police.
That was not actually the transgender woman, black woman who was shot by the police. That was not actually the purpose of the protest.
I see.
That just happened.
That happened right.
Okay.
What was the purpose of the protest?
The protest was to protest the Westboro Baptist Church. Quote unquote, God hates fags.
Oh, I know. Yeah, we know Westboro.
Yeah.
Right. They were protesting something.
So they were protesting Pride Night. It was at Busch Stadium. It was Busch Stadium's very first Pride Night, which is awesome, of course. And they also had a transgender woman throwing out the first pitch at Busch Stadium that night. So anyway, these awful Westboro Baptist Church people, 6 people with their horrible, hateful signs, we knew that they were going to be there. So there was a protest being organized to protest them. So it was an anti-Westboro Baptist Church, and it was a pro-LGBTQIA protest. And that was supposed to be the point. So then this protest group stated they had a bunch of these very serious, strict rules that you must follow if you're going to be a part of this protest. And the rules were no pink pussy hats.
Why?
And no palling around with cops, which people later asked, and what they meant was you're not allowed to say hello to a cop.
Or treat him like a human being.
You're not allowed to treat him like a human being.
People don't like it when you don't treat them like human beings.
No, I think humanity and treating people well actually makes you look better for your cause.
Absolutely. We cannot dehumanize people.
No.
I don't care who they
cops
are.
Who have problems, yes. Cops in general, there's a systemic problem there.
Yeah.
Of course, nobody's
They're still just people.
So, but each individual cop, we have to recognize they're human beings. We cannot make assumptions. We cannot treat them like crap because we're mad about police brutality.
If you dehumanize any group, they react poorly.
Yes.
If you treat gay people, cops, anybody like they are subhuman, that's a problem because they will lash out like an animal.
People are more willing to listen to you if you treat them with respect.
People want to be treated like a human being and loved.
Which is not to excuse the lashing out, but it is simply true that they will.
Right.
You're pissing them off when you are, rude to them. And there's no reason when we are. And it's not saying. Sometimes it is justified, of course, to be angry at them. Of course, I'm angry.
There's a lot of problems with policing.
100%,
and
I am very
outspoken
outspoken about that. But to have a blanket rule that you're not allowed to speak to any cop, you're not allowed to say hello, nothing. That's the rule at this protest. But so there was that,
really,
and there was the pink.
It sounds like
hats.
they just wanted a protest of their own. Like one person wanted
one guy.
Like they have their own
he's the
specific
one parade.
rules.
Well, in all fairness, they did have a lot of people. So I mean, I don't want it to sound as though they did have a good turnout for sure. So I'll give them that.
Yeah.
But so I spoke out specifically about the no pink pussy hat rule because I believe we should not be telling people what headwear they can and cannot wear, or what attire they can and cannot wear. Right. And on the left, we should absolutely respect people's choice of self-expression, how they dress, people's free speech, and choice of who they talk to. These things, like on the left, we respect individual autonomy, individual free will.
I mean, I think those are supposed to be our tenets. I think
supposed to.
Thank you.
Is it? Well, a lot of people don't. They it seems a lot of people want it to be very rigid and they want to be in control of the situation.
Control. Yes. I'm glad you said that. And this is why it really made me upset is that here I am fighting so hard against the far right, the religious right, with their control. And they want to control people's sex lives and sexual choices, and they want to control women's rights. And then we have people on the left also trying to control, just saying, you will do this, you will do that. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do that. It's my way. I am in charge of you. But we're all trying to come together to support LGBT people. Yeah. Shouldn't we be happy, that people want to support this cause instead of pushing people away? I saw that as harmful. That's why I don't like
politics. Honestly, that's why I don't like politics. Is there's all these little things. You have to be this. You have to be this. You have to be this. And it's like, I'm not politically correct. I will tell a dick joke. It's going to happen.
He does.
Most days.
Oh, yeah.
That's the reality.
It's fine.
But you know what? But I'm also a loving person. And I'm very inclusive of all people.
And that should be what I feel like intentions should matter and not. And if you believe someone isn't educated fully about a topic, then help to educate them. Yeah. But you don't need to push them away and be antagonistic and hostile to them.
I want to say one thing on that, too, and then you can finish it off. But in my job as a therapist, I see people of a variety of walks of life. I work with all cultures, all religions, all creeds, right? And I think that I have a platform every time they come into my office to teach them new things and help them to grow. But what I've learned is coming at people with kindness and compassion and love makes them willing to listen to me. They do. And I've been able to change people's opinions on teaching their children sex education that's comprehensive. People who were very fundamentalist.
Awesome.
And
good for you.
Well, because they're coming for help, but when you come with love and passion, then people are more willing to listen. And I see it every day in the work
people
that
don't
I
like
do.
Anger.
People don't like anger. Anger pushes people away,
If
but
you
love
yell
and
at a
kindness
cop,
more willing to listen and talk.
And the thing is, so I don't know if you're familiar with tone policing.
Tone policing.
Here's the thing: is tone policing is a real thing, it can be a problem.
She's like, stop yelling. I'm not yelling. I'm just
not yelling.
talking
I'm raising
very
my voice.
sternly.
I don't know if that is exactly what qualifies. So tone policing.
teasing.
No, I know. It's funny. But so basically, so if a member of an oppressed, marginalized group is talking about oppression and prejudice, discrimination, what they've dealt with,
right.
And they're angry about it, and they're cussing, and they're impassioned, and they're mad. Like if we tell them, oh, calm down, just use more polite language, that's tone policing.
Which nothing calms people down more than going, calm
calm
down.
Exactly. I mean, I'm certainly not calm
because their initial response is, I am calm. I was, at least.
Yeah,
I was
now
calm,
I'm
but
not
now
gonna
I'm
be.
angry at you.
Controlling me.
So
Exactly.
speaking of that,
Yeah.
somebody on Facebook said, "You are not my ally," and they yelled it. It was all in
Yes.
caps.
Yeah.
Was that the person who actually was putting on the other protests? One of the leadership?
Oh
or
gosh,
just-
I mean, a few people.
a few people said you're not their ally.
It probably was.
Yeah.
It probably was her. Yeah.
Yeah.
The person
Yeah.
that put it. So that's
What do
the
you
thing.
think to that?
I mean, at
What do
this
you
point,
say
I
to
don't
that?
care if she or anyone else tells me I'm not an ally, because I know that I am.
Right.
And I strongly stand up and speak out for LGBTQ rights and acceptance. And I do it all the time, and I always have, and I always will. And
Yeah.
same thing with people of color. I mean, all marginalized oppressed groups, I'm passionate about this, that we need to fight, white supremacy and patriarchy and hetero supremacy and Christian supremacy. Like, all of these things are bad. And so I speak out against them, and I protest because I believe strongly in these causes. So it doesn't really bother me if somebody tells me, you're not doing this the way I want you to do it. You're not, how dare you? Therefore, you're not my ally. Like, okay, well, I mean, I'm sorry you feel that way, but yes,
you may not
I
be
am.
allies. Well, they don't see you as their ally.
Yeah.
Is what they were saying.
So because I said that we shouldn't
you
control
still
people's
can-
hats, they
right.
think I'm not an ally. Well, so, and, 'cause
How dare you? I was planning on wearing a very nice top hat.
That's offensive to some people, I'm sure.
Top hat.
I'm sure it could.
It's part of the patriarchy.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe somebody would,
It's anybody that wears a bowler. Top hats are out.
And to be fair, I do think we should point out, just in case anybody doesn't know, the reason that they were against the pink pussy hat. I mean, I want to be fair to them.
Why were they?
That they believe it is transphobic, because they believe it's harmful to trans women.
Why?
Because it's about the pussy, the vagina, vulva, which some trans women don't have, of course.
But you can still be for something and not hate on
And not
another group.
against somebody
like,
else.
just because I have a
Exactly.
belief of, I think women should control their own bodies.
Yes.
Just because I believe that doesn't mean that then I'm saying, well, trans people shouldn't. Like,
Exactly. Thank you.
That's
for
weird.
I feel
pointing
like
that
maybe they
out.
shouldn't.
Yes.
There shouldn't be so much nitpicking on
Exactly.
like these little things.
Right.
Like, it's about like, are we going for this bigger overall goal that's going to help society? Then let's not nitpick on the little details.
Right. Minutia.
Yes.
I
Yes.
see that a lot. People get lost in semantics.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And so we have a disagreement about this, and I stood up and I said so, and I think that
And they banned you from the group.
and so then they blocked and deleted me, blocked me
everything
from
you
the
did.
group,
That just made it worse.
saying you are not welcome to protest with us. They kept telling me, stay home, just stay home. But we should never tell anybody to stay home. If you want to protest for LGBTQ rights,
Right.
don't stay home. Please come out and do this. We
Like,
want
do they
people.
think you're really going to show up on the other side at the Westboro side?
I mean,
like,
that's
is that
the
what
thing.
they think?
I mean, they're so
I don't
far
understand.
out there at this point that they act as though I'm on the other side, when, of course, I've been abundantly clear that I am completely in agreement with them for full LGBTQIA rights and fully supportive of trans people. Trans women are women. Trans men are men.
But they're
And-
focusing on the minutia.
yeah,
That's it.
because how dare I support people choosing to wear a hat that they want to wear? And then with the cops, they were mad at me for that. How dare you? And really, that was other people who were questioning in the group, and they also got deleted and blocked
Because they
from
questioned
the
treating
group.
police
Treating
officers
cops
like
as human
humans.
beings, and they said, "What if I'm friends with a cop and I want to say hi?"
Yeah.
And then these organizers said, "You may not do so.
These
You're
are
not allowed
people.
to do so."
Okay.
Yeah.
And they think that if you say hello to a cop, you're racist.
Why?
And they think that if you wear a pink pussy hat, you're automatically also transphobic. And it's like there's a nuance to
What
these
if the cop is a
conversations.
black
So,
transsexual
Thank
person?
you for pointing that out.
Like you don't know who they are.
Exactly. Cops
Wha-
can
why-
be LGBTQ as well.
There are gay cops.
And people
yes,
can be
and
joining.
people of color. Yeah.
and people may join the police officers because they want to make change from within. There's different ways to make
Yes.
change. It's protesting
Yes.
outside or get a part of the system and see if you can really make a change.
Yes.
I understand
and,
that.
and the thing
I think it's
is,
important.
that-
I think it is.
I think a lot of people, like some young men get interested in going to the police force, and then they kind of read a lot of this stuff, they see what's in the media about cops, and I
it's a
think some of
dangerous
them are
job.
backing out because they're like, I don't want to deal with that. Like, they want to be a positive change, but they see all this negativity. And it makes them not want to be a part of that other side, the
and we
enemy.
want good people
but
to
you
be
don't want to
cops.
label
Yeah.
you don't want to label all cops as the enemy
Yes.
because you're immediately creating a vacuum of people who are LGBTQ positive, who are not racist, who are very inclusive,
Yes.
who don't want to even go into that profession
Right.
because they fear they're going to be treated like animals. They're going to
Yes.
be seen as the enemy to a large population.
Yeah.
You know,
And-
Orange is the New Black did a really good version of this. In their recent season, there was a death of an inmate in the prison, but there was also, like, they looked at both sides. Like, the police officers weren't trained very well
Yeah.
either. And so I think when people, like, if you really think about this, some of this is just teaching, like doing more training for police officers, teaching them when to use force, when to not use force. And honestly, in some regards, it might be good if we just didn't have violent force as the means to
Yes.
address situations.
Yeah, yeah.
And if we could get rid of drug laws, because I feel like a lot of those are
thank
just
you.
targeting
Yes. And the war on
targeting
drugs.
people.
Absolutely. Legalization. Definitely. I agree with that.
Oh yeah, legalize it.
Yeah.
Come on.
I think everybody does.
And do you want me to address what happened at that protest after?
Yeah, what happened?
Well,
so like there was all this chaos on the internet. I saw arguing, like saying
'Cause
you're
I-
not my ally.
Because
And
I
they're-
started my other protest group.
Right.
So so they kicked me out. I started my own protest group. I said, I'm not going to stay home.
Right.
I want to support LGBTQ people. I want to oppose the Westboro Baptist
Right.
Church. And other people also wanted to do so, and they didn't like the other group's strict rules. So they were mad at me for starting another protest group.
Sure.
But so anyway, we
like, how dare you take their fire? You know.
I said they
Take
own
their
it,
protest.
and it's in a public space. It was
public
outside,
space,
by
yeah.
the way.
Anybody
But-
can go.
So anyway, yeah, they were mad at me, but I showed up with others as well,
Mm-hmm.
and they all showed up. We protested Westboro Baptist Church. We held our signs, and then Westboro Baptist Church left. And then after Westboro Baptist Church left,
Mm-hmm. So were the two groups separated, or
I actually stood right next to them,
Yeah.
and we just held signs.
Yeah.
And they had their megaphone, and and it was loud with Westboro Baptist Church's crazy music.
they do music?
They play pop songs that they rewrite and re-record with anti-gay, like God hates fags language for the lyrics. It's really horrible, and they're legally allowed to do that. But yeah, they play. It's like
terrible.
blast this music.
That's crazy.
And you want to it's like music, pop songs that you know, and you want to like dance
So you start
to it, but then
dancing.
you
You're
realize
like, oh my
that
God,
you're
that's
oh my
Katy
God,
Perry.
That's hate speech.
Yes, exactly.
no.
But so they had that, and then while
I didn't
they're
know they did
blasting
that.
this music, then this other protest group has the megaphone, and they're all loud, and it was, and I felt like, well,
Sounds very overwhelming.
it was a lot. But
He
I felt,
doesn't like very
Yeah, I
loud
wouldn't do
noises.
that.
oh,
No.
you would not
Yeah.
have liked
I have
it.
sensory problems.
And
No,
the thing is,
thank
I felt
you.
like, well, Westboro Baptist Church, we know that they're peaceful. They just stand there holding their
right.
stupid,
They're not.
hateful
They know.
signs.
They know violence will get them out of there
Right.
Yeah.
immediately.
And they want you to be violent so that they can sue you, and then they make money in that way.
And
But
they they make you look like the bad person. In the
Exactly.
situation.
That's exactly what they want.
Right.
And so I was just thinking, all we need is as many bodies as possible just holding, accepting, supportive, equality, signs for LGBTQI people and
Oh,
block
you got to put
them.
sarcastic ones up too.
Oh, and those are funny
Those
sometimes
are the best
too,
ones.
for sure.
Yeah, I love
like those too.
Yeah.
But just having people holding signs blocking the view of the Westboro Baptist Church, I think, is all you need if you're
Yeah.
going to protest them. You don't need all the.
So are you guys on the
hoopla.
same side of the
So-
street with the Westboro? Or?
Yeah, we were directly in front of them
Oh, wow.
and blocking them,
Like, how far?
which is good.
Like,
Well, they had they were like behind
A barrier?
a barrier.
Okay.
And we were all right in front of them.
Oh, wow.
So,
That's
but and then
intimidating.
they left, and then
Yeah.
after they left, then this other protest group
Mm-hmm.
started yelling, "F you to the police.
Oh, no.
Police are racist. Middle fingers to the police."
they're making it about what the
why?
protest wasn't about.
So exactly. So the protest then devolves from the anti-Westboro Baptist Church and pro-LGBTQIA protest into a F the police protest. And I'm thinking, okay, well, what's now your message is lost. What's the purpose of this protest?
Yeah.
This wasn't supposed to be an anti-cop protest. And they just out, loud F you police, racist police. and then they're going back and forth on the streets doing that. And then I was standing on the sidewalk, and the organizer called me out and shamed me and yelled at me because I wasn't being a real ally because I was standing on the sidewalk and not in the street with her and her group, which I really didn't want to be standing with them at that point when they're just yelling and I was there to protest the Westboro Baptist Church. I was there to support LGBTQI people. It wasn't supposed to be just an anti-cop.
But I mean, look at the hypocrisy of that. Like you're saying love. You're protesting for love and acceptance, and then it ends in hate speech towards cops.
Right.
I mean, people, if you're preaching love and acceptance of all people, that means that you have to love and accept all people. And I know that it's hard to do that towards people that you disagree with, but it has more of an impact if you do. We love you. We just want to see change.
Like Martin Luther King.
That's the message we need.
Martin Luther King Jr. would not have yelled F the police.
No.
Like he sat down in nonviolent protest.
Well, and these individuals would say they more align themselves with Malcolm X for sure. You know what I mean? Like they're not trying to be Martin Luther King.
They're not.
And I can respect that not everybody is, and there are different ways to do activism, and I respect that. But I
don't see violence as very useful when it comes to protest.
Right.
Because you're just going to make it much easier for them to bring in the police and tear gas you.
Exactly.
If any violence or looting happens, they're just going to come in and break it up, and you're going to be seen on the news as the problem and not somebody who's actually trying to make a solution and trying to create a peaceful world.
Message going out there.
Right.
And they had a bunch of Antifa members
I don't know what
this
Antifa
protest.
is. What's that?
So they're Antifa is short for anti-fascist, which is good. We should all be anti-fascist for sure. But so they like
Nazis,
right? Like
Nazi
in
bad.
Charlottesville, the Antifa members were there to fight the white supremacists that were marching, and that's a good thing. We got to take them down for sure. But now they go out at basically every left wing protest. It's not just a white supremacist march; they just go out all the time. So
they go everywhere.
So this protest that was against the Westboro Baptist Church, they were there with face coverings, like looking intimidating.
And the reality is that doesn't work. What actually worked with the guys with the torches, what worked is they took photos of their faces.
Yes.
And they put them online, and they said, this is where he works. This is his boss's phone number. This is his school. Why don't you give them a call?
Yes.
If you really are going to be out there and going to be talking about your cause, you need to be willing to back it up. Because with your face. Because the reality is, if you cover up your face, they don't know who's there. They don't know what the message is. They can't follow up with you.
Yes.
So what did you believe there? It's like, what are you protesting? I don't know. I'm covering my face up. You can't see me.
Well, I'm
just going to be violent.
And the people that do that they're very, very paranoid about the cops. Sometimes with good reason.
I understand
but
that.
Sometimes it gets to the extreme where, that's why they're not willing to show their face no matter what. They're thinking, oh, we're going to get arrested if we show our face. The cops are going to target us.
Do the Antifa people do any violence or as a part of their protest?
The point of Antifa is that they're perfectly willing to do violence to fight fascism. I do think that sometimes I'm not going to say that they do violence necessarily that they start the violence, but I think that sometimes they are antagonistic.
They antagonize the crowd and maybe throw a rock.
Like they're perfectly happy for it to escalate.
They're trying to devolve a peaceful protest into something violent.
Yes, which is ironic because we want cops to de-escalate, and so that we don't get violence with them. I feel like shouldn't we do the same thing?
Be the change you want to see.
Be the change.
But they're not into that peaceful. Like they think that's just kind of hippie talk.
Well, I understand.
They're not pacifists.
I understand their point of view is that it's been how long since the civil rights movement, and they're still dealing with this stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's been 70 years.
It's very frustrating.
Really, this is a tough world to live in for them.
Yes.
And but it's hard though, because if you're at a protest like that and you cause violence, it doesn't really solve anything.
Right.
Unless you're willing to take up arms against the actual government with a militia, that's really the only way to change the government.
Some of these people I think are for sure.
People always talk. When Obama was elected, people bought guns in the droves. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Like guns everywhere. I know people who went out and bought a gun. I'm not going to say who.
But it's like
it's like
so
really.
silly.
I know. Does it really help?
It didn't.
It doesn't
Nothing happened.
because guess what? You don't have drones. You don't have drones
I
with
know,
airstrikes.
right?
Like,
I always say that.
the reality is you have to change from within the system.
The
Like, you
government
can't.
has more weapons than you.
I don't have a nuclear weapon. I want to make it very clear to everybody out there that I do not
to know.
own a military weapon.
Good to know.
Kim Jong-un does.
Yeah.
Our government does. So.
But I like what you said about within the system.
Within the system.
Work within the system. I
Right.
100% agree.
And that's why I think people like you should run for those offices.
Oh, thank you.
The reality is that you have to be out there and be willing to put yourself on the line
and have a real opinion that matters.
But I think you're doing good stuff right now when it comes to
Yeah.
the Thrive stuff. Like I love that.
I
it's
love
down
that
to
you've
7.
actually made some changes in the schools. That's
so
really awesome.
With St. Charles School District, are they still doing the Thrive?
So yeah, let me list all.
We
yeah,
really
let's go
care,
back. Looping
right?
back to that.
Yeah, let's go back because
we're about to wrap it up.
Okay, so there are 7 school districts that still have Thrive Best Choice. If you are in any of these school districts, please contact the administrators, the superintendent, assistant superintendent, the board members. All of them go to board meetings.
And do you list that on your website? ExposeThrive.com?
Yes, ExposeThrive.com.
Yeah.
Facebook.com/ExposeThrive as well. So the school districts are the St. Charles School District, the Fort Zumwalt School District, the Lindbergh School District, the Bayless School District, the charter school Lift for Life Academy.
Interesting.
Also
I would
has
expect
them.
I would expect it with that title.
I need to go pay a visit to them very soon. And then Lincoln County School District in good old Troy, Missouri, and then the Winfield School District. So those are the ones that still have Thrive Best Choice, and so we definitely need to stay on their case and continue to speak out. And the more people who can do that, the better, because this is wrong. And do I have time to talk about an activity that Thrive does that's really...
Sure.
Because I wanted to talk about this before, and then we started talking about other things.
Go. Yeah.
So this is just awful. So Thrive Best Choice does this activity with students that they call the Yucky Water Cheez-It activity.
The Yucky Water Cheez-It?
That is what they call it.
Like Cheez-Its?
Cheez-It crackers. Yes.
Okay.
And
I don't know how Cheez-Its will feel about that. That's a brand name.
Oh, no.
That's
what
a
is
good
this?
point. You're right. They wouldn't. They would hate it.
No.
So yeah, and they use the word yucky. So here's what the activity is. The Thrive Best Choice presenter.
It's okay, Angela.
I
I just
care
hear
about
you-
these
I
things.
just hear
I'm
you
like
sighing,
falling
you're like,
apart over here. I'm
no.
like, no,
Oh.
you need good sex education.
Go on. So
Go on.
Just wait.
What
just
is
wait.
the Yucky Water?
know.
So the Thrive Best Choice presenter gives all of the kids Cheez-Its to chew up, and there are 2 cups of water. So one of the cups of water, the Thrive Best Choice presenter gives to the students.
There's
so
teaching abstinence.
Student
Okay,
number
got
1 chews up the Cheez-Its, spits it into the cup of water, and then passes the cup of water back to the next kid, and they do the same thing. And each kid keeps doing that. So this represents having premarital sex with different
Passing
partners.
STDs or...
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then at the end of that, after every kid has chewed up and spit out their Cheez-Its in the water, the Thrive Best Choice presenter takes that cup and then the cup of untouched, pure, clean water, and they say, so which
cup
cup
do you
would
want to
you rather drink out of? And of course, the kids pick the clean, pure water and not the yucky, disgusting water with chewed up, spit out Cheez-Its. And
I
that's
just wanna
your body
say,
if you have sex, they say.
I enjoy Cheez-Its, so I don't think I would mind the
that's
other
not-
water. Yeah, so they didn't win me over there, just so you know.
But so that's the thing. Like when we talk
They're
about
making
how
a
it
metaphor.
is fear-based and shame-based, and it is not. They're not emphasizing using protection
Right.
if you have sex
Here's
to
what I
prevent
want-
STDs.
here's
To
what I
prevent
wanna do.
yucky Cheez-It water.
Exactly.
Here's what we need to do.
Exactly.
We need to send them to school with a condom, put that over the cup of water,
Yes.
and then you can all start spitting on it all you
And
want.
it won't get
and I'll
into
take
the
the top
water.
off, and guess what? It'll be delicious.
It's gotta be delicious water.
Exactly. That would actually be a good activity.
Yeah.
And they do another similar thing with they do paint, fluorescent paint. And sponges. And so you can't see the paint, and then
see.
you
Glow in
have
the
the
dark.
sponges, and then they
Yeah.
turn off the lights, and you do a black light,
I
and it's
see.
like, look, it's all over your hands. That's STDs. But if the activity actually
you
gave
wore a
some
glove.
kids gloves, and those kids wouldn't have anything on their hands,
didn't
that
give
would
them
be
gloves.
a good
I'm
activity.
protected.
Yeah.
Did you know
Right.
you could do
Let's
that?
Right.
send the kids to school with rubber gloves and condoms on that day. There you go.
Yes.
It's like, I'm good.
Oh, I like that idea.
It'll work out.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah, they'll get in
But
trouble.
yeah, it's just all that they.
Oh, yeah.
How dare you?
How dare you actually
tell
protect
kids to
yourself from
protect
germs?
themselves
and
It's like,
be
no,
dare
I'm a bit
you.
of a germaphobe.
Yeah.
I don't want to
No,
touch
I'm
other
not gonna
people.
touch this
That's
stuff.
the thing is they equate sex with yucky, that was their word, yucky,
that's
yucky, dirty,
inappropriate.
gross.
Sex is beautiful. It's something to be shared when you're ready.
And you
I think
choose
that's okay.
about consent. But and we also need to point out that what if kids have been raped, sexually assaulted?
They're yucky, not even by choice.
Bingo.
I know
They're not.
the connection.
They're beautiful people.
That's why I hate this stuff so much.
matter what.
I know, it's harmful. So yes, please speak out. Please exposethrive.com. Facebook.com/exposethrive. Please donate. We are a political action committee. If you give us donations and you're generous enough to do so, we use that money to advertise. And right now, I have been advertising on Facebook, and it has been very effective. There's a video of me.
I mean, you're down to 7. Come on.
Seven school districts from 20.
districts.
It's exciting, but we can do the rest. But I just need more people to understand this and get on board and help with it. So
Okay. And if they want to contact you on Facebook, what is your name on Facebook?
Any plugs?
So Sally Hunt, but on Facebook, I have my maiden name, Sally Buxbaum Hunt, Buxbaum. And you can email me at sally@exposethrive.com.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and I also am
you were talking about you were going to start your own podcast.
There's a show,
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm about to be starting a podcast and a YouTube channel and a blog. I just set up the blog.
Oh, you're about to get a whole new pile of work in front of you.
Yeah, I know. As if I haven't been busy enough with all this
you'd have
stuff.
enough time with 3 kids.
I want this message to get out there more.
Yeah.
So it's The Sally Show.
The Sally Show.
thesallyshow.com. And I'll be doing the Sally Show YouTube and podcast. So
excellent. Yeah. Great. And then, of course, if you want to get therapy, it's www.therapistinstlouis.com. I'm willing to help you wash away all that terrible sex education you got before coming and getting married.
And don't worry.
Work to do.
I do. I tell the same things all day, every day. It's crazy.
And she does not keep any Cheez-Its in her office.
I do. No,
So
there are. It is a Cheez-It-free office and a shame-free office.
This is a safe space. And if you want to contact us, go to our website, aboutsexpodcast.com, or you can find us both on Facebook, and we have a YouTube channel. We're all over the place.
Yep, everywhere.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you for joining us.
Here. Thank you for being here, Sally. It was nice to meet you.
You too.
Good night. Okay. That's still going.
Oh, the live's still
going.
Bye,
Everybody.
guys.
Thanks for joining us live.